The morning alarm echoed through the empty corridors of Mining Station Alpha 7, just as it had for the past 117 years. Hyunwoo Kim rolled out of his makeshift bed and stretched his aching muscles. At 34 years old, he looked much older than his age. His black hair had streaks of gray, and deep lines marked his weathered face. Living alone on this dead planet had aged him in ways that normal life never could. He walked through the metal hallways of what used to be humanity's greatest colony ship. The new soul had carried 50,000 people to this distant world, hoping to build a new home among the stars. Instead, it had become their tomb. Hyunwoo was just a child when the ship crashed during landing. "Engine failure," his father had said in those final moments. Too much damage to fix. Everyone else had died in the crash or from injuries afterward. Everyone except him. Now the ship served as his home, his workshop, and his prison. He had learned to keep the life support systems running, to grow food in the hydroponic bays, and to repair the mining equipment that still dug precious metals from the planet's crust. The work gave him purpose. Without it, he might have gone insane long ago. Hyunwoo made his way to the command center, where dozens of screens showed the status of mining operations across the planet. Green lights meant everything was working. Red lights meant he had work to do. Today, like most days, several lights blinked red. "Good morning, computer," he said to the ship's artificial intelligence. It was one of the few systems that still worked perfectly. "Good morning, Hyunwoo. Mining Sector 7 has stopped responding. Drilling Platform 12 needs new parts. The water recycling system is running at 80% efficiency." Hyunwoo nodded. Just another normal day. He grabbed his tools and headed for the exit. Outside, the planet's twin suns cast harsh light across the rocky landscape. The air was thin but breathable, thanks to the atmosphere processors the colonists had built before the crash. In the distance, massive mining machines worked automatically, following programs written over a century ago. He climbed into his transport vehicle and drove toward Sector 7. The journey took 2 hours across the barren landscape. Along the way, he passed the graves of his parents and the other colonists, simple metal markers in neat rows. He had dug each grave himself when he was young, not really understanding that he would spend the rest of his life alone. The broken mining drill was a simple fix, a damaged power cable that he replaced with spare parts. Hyunwoo had become an expert at fixing things over the years. He had to be. There was no one else to do it. As he worked, he thought about the messages he sometimes received from deep space. Radio signals from other human colonies, growing weaker each year. In the early days after the crash, he had tried to send messages back. Calls for help, requests for rescue. But this planet was too far from the main shipping routes. No one ever came. The signals from other human worlds had stopped coming about 20 years ago. Hyunwoo told himself they had simply moved to better communication systems. He refused to think about other possibilities. By evening, he had fixed 3 more broken machines and replaced a worn-out atmospheric processor. He drove back to the ship as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. It was beautiful, but he had seen this same sunset 40,000 times before. Beauty meant less when you had no one to share it with. Back in his quarters, Hyunwoo heated a meal of processed algae and recycled protein. The taste was terrible, but it kept him alive. He ate while watching old video messages from the colonists, recorded before the crash. Families talking about their hopes for the new world. Children excited about their adventure. his own parents, young and full of dreams. He watched these videos every night. They reminded him that he was human, that he came from a species that could love and laugh and hope. Sometimes he forgot. After dinner, he worked on his hobby. For decades, he had been trying to repair the ship's main communications array. If he could fix it, he might be able to send a message strong enough to reach other human colonies. Maybe someone would hear him. Maybe someone would come. The work was frustrating. The array had been badly damaged in the crash, and he was missing several key components. But he kept trying. What else did he have to do? As he worked, Hyunwoo noticed something strange. The metal components seemed to respond to his touch in ways they never had before. When he concentrated, he could almost feel the flow of electricity through the circuits. It was probably just his imagination, but lately, machines seemed to work better when he touched them. He dismissed the thought. Living alone for so long was making him imagine things. At midnight, he gave up on the communications, array and prepared for bed. Tomorrow would be another day of maintenance and repairs. Another day of keeping the mining operation running, even though he was not sure why. The automated systems could probably run for another century without him. But working gave his life, meaning, as he lay in his bed, Hyunwoo looked out the small window at the stars. Somewhere out there, other humans might still be alive. Other colonies, other ships, other people who remembered Earth and dreamed of the future. He liked to imagine that humanity was thriving among the stars, building new worlds, and making new discoveries. He had to believe that. The alternative was too dark to consider. Sleep came slowly, as it always did. In his dreams, Hyunwoo walked through the corridors of the new Seoul as it had been before the crash, full of life and voices and laughter. His parents were there, young and healthy. The other colonists worked and played and planned for tomorrow. But he always woke up alone. In the morning, the alarm would sound again. He would check the mining, systems, fix whatever was broken, and continue his endless routine. He was the last human on this forgotten world, keeper of machines that served no purpose except to prove that humanity had once been here. Hyunwoo Kim did not know that his years of isolation had changed him in ways that would soon become important. He did not know that somewhere in the galaxy, an alien empire was hunting down the last humans. He did not know that his lonely existence was about to end in the most dramatic way possible. All he knew was that he would wake up tomorrow and do his duty, just as he had for 117 years, because that was what humans did. They survived, they endured, they never gave up, even when they were alone. The stars looked down on the last human of mining station Alpha 7 as he slept, unaware that tomorrow would bring visitors. Visitors who would change everything and set him on a path that would shake the galaxy itself. But tonight, Hyunwoo Kim was just a man trying to survive another day in the endless darkness between the stars. The communications array crackled to life just after dawn, filling the command center with strange voices speaking in a language Hyunwoo had never heard. He dropped his morning meal and rushed to the control panel, his heart racing with excitement. After 117 years of silence, someone was finally trying to contact him. But as he listened more carefully, his excitement turned to confusion, then to fear. The voices were not human. They spoke in harsh, guttural tones, with clicking sounds that hurt his ears. The computer's translation system struggled to make sense of the alien words. Scanning for energy signatures, the translation finally managed. Primitive mining operation detected. No signs of intelligent life. Hyunwoo's blood ran cold. Aliens. Real aliens were talking about his planet, and they thought no one lived here. He quickly activated the ship's passive sensors and found 3 large vessels approaching from orbit. They were unlike any human design he had seen. Dark, angular ships that looked built for war. He ran to the observation deck and looked up at the sky. 3 black dots were growing larger, descending through the atmosphere like falling stars. Whoever they were, they would be here soon. Hyun-woo had dreamed of contact with other intelligent life for decades, but not like this. These aliens talked about his world like they owned it, and their ships looked designed to kill. He made a quick decision and activated the ship's emergency protocols, shutting down all external power sources and communication systems. To outside observers, the mining station would look completely dead. The first alien ship landed near mining platform 12, about 10 kilometers from the New Seoul. Hyun-woo watched through hidden cameras as tall reptilian creatures emerged from the vessel. They wore advanced armor and carried weapons that hummed with energy. Their leader, a massive alien with scarred scales and glowing red eyes, gestured to his soldiers. The translation system worked overtime to decode their conversation. Valak Empire Survey Team 7 to command. Planet appears abandoned. Beginning. Resource evaluation. Valak Empire. The name sent chills down Hyun-woo's spine. An empire meant conquest, expansion, control. And if they were surveying his planet, they planned to take it. He spent the day watching the aliens explore the mining sites. They seemed impressed by human technology, even though it was over a century old. Their leader, who the others called Commander Thex Gorvain, examined the automated mining equipment with obvious interest. "These machines are more advanced than expected," Gorvain said to his team. "The extinct species that built them had some skill. We will claim this world for the Empire. The minerals here will fuel our war machine." Extinct species. Hyun-woo's hands clenched into fists. They thought humans were gone, dead, finished. He wanted to charge out and prove them wrong, but he was. One man against an armed squad of alien soldiers. He needed to be smart about this. That evening, as the aliens set up a temporary camp, Hyun-woo accessed their ship's communication system using skills he had developed over decades of loneliness. The computer translation helped him understand the encrypted messages flowing between the survey team and their command ship in orbit. What he learned made his blood freeze. The Valak Empire controlled most of the galaxy. They had conquered dozens of species over the past 3 centuries, enslaving those who surrendered and destroying those who resisted. And humans had been wiped out nearly 90 years ago. Earth fell in 2398. One message read, "Last human colonies eliminated by 2401. Species classified as extinct. No further resistance expected." Hyun-woo stared at the screen, his mind struggling to process the information. Earth was gone. The colonies were gone. Every other human in the galaxy was dead. He truly was alone, not just on this planet, but in the entire universe. The weight of that knowledge hit him like a physical blow. He collapsed into his chair, feeling like the last light in a dark galaxy had just been extinguished. Everyone he might have known, everyone he could have loved, everyone who shared his DNA and his dreams, all gone. But grief quickly turned to anger. The Valak had murdered his entire species. They had snuffed out billions of lives, and now they wanted to claim his world too. The last human world. His world. No. He would not let that happen. Hyun-woo spent the next 3 days planning. He studied the aliens' equipment, their routines, their weaknesses. The Valak were powerful, but they were arrogant. They did not expect resistance from a dead world. On the fourth day, Commander Gorvain decided to investigate the new soul personally. He approached the crashed ship with 2 soldiers, their energy weapons ready for trouble they did not expect to find. Hyunwoo waited in the shadows of the cargo bay, his heart pounding. He had rigged several traps using mining explosives and electrical systems. If he was going to die, he would take some of the aliens with him. The aliens entered the ship cautiously, their armor sensors scanning for signs of life. But Hyunwoo had learned to hide from scanners long ago. He moved like a ghost through corridors. He knew better than his own body. The first soldier died when he triggered an explosive charge while examining the engine room. The blast echoed through the ship like thunder. The second soldier rushed to help his comrade and walked into an electrical trap that overloaded his armor systems. That left Commander Gorvain alone with Hyunwoo. They faced each other in the ship's main corridor. The alien was twice Hyunwoo's size, armed with advanced weapons and protected by battle armor. Hyunwoo had a simple metal wrench and 117 years of desperate survival skills. "Impossible," Gorvain growled in his harsh language. "Humans are extinct. You cannot exist." "I exist," Hyunwoo replied in the few Valak words he had learned. "I am human. I am alive. And this is my world." Gorvain raised his energy weapon, but something strange happened. As Hyunwoo focused on the alien's gun, he felt a tingling sensation in his hands. The weapon sparked and died, its energy cells somehow drained. The alien's armor began to malfunction, lights flickering and systems shutting down. Both human and alien stared in shock. Hyunwoo had no idea what had just happened, but he did not waste the opportunity. He lunged forward with his wrench and struck the alien's exposed head. Gorvain collapsed, unconscious but alive. Hyunwoo dragged the alien commander to the ship's medical bay and secured him with restraints. When Gorvain woke up hours later, he found himself facing the impossible, a living human who had somehow defeated Valak technology with his bare hands. "You killed my soldiers," Gorvain said. "The Empire will come for you." "Good," Hyunwoo replied. "Let them come. I want to meet the aliens who murdered my people." Over the next few days, Hyunwoo interrogated his prisoner. He learned about the galaxy's current state, about the Valak Empire's conquests, and about the few scattered groups of other species who still resisted alien rule. Most importantly, he learned that some humans might still be alive in hidden colonies or as slaves in Valak territories. The knowledge changed everything. Hyunwoo was not the last human after all. There were others out there, fighting for survival against impossible odds. They needed help. They needed hope. They needed him. When the other Valak ships tried to contact their survey team, Hyunwoo used Gorvain's communication codes to convince them that everything was normal. He bought himself time to plan his next move. He was no longer just a survivor trying to maintain mining equipment on a forgotten world. He was the last free human in the galaxy, and he had somehow developed abilities that could challenge alien technology. The war was not over. It was just beginning, and Hyunwoo Kim, the man who had been alone for 117 years, was about to discover that sometimes one person really could change the course of history. Hyunwoo stared at his hands in the dim light of the medical bay. 3 times now, he had touched alien technology and made it stop working. The first time with Gorvain's weapon could have been luck. The second time with the communication equipment might have been coincidence. But the third time, when he had deliberately placed his palm on the Valak ship's engine and watched it shut down completely, there was no denying the truth. Something inside him had changed. Commander Gorvain watched from his restraints as Hyun-woo experimented with his new abilities. The alien's red eyes showed fear for the first time since his capture. "What are you?" Gorvain asked in broken human speech he had learned during interrogation. "I am what happens when you try to kill all humans," Hyun-woo replied. "I am what 117 years of survival creates." He placed his hand on the medical scanner and concentrated. The machine hummed to life, its displays showing information about his body that made no sense. His brain activity was off the charts. His nervous system showed electrical patterns unlike anything in the medical database. His DNA had markers that the computer labeled as unknown mutations. The years of isolation, the constant stress of staying alive, the desperate need to adapt or die, all of it had triggered something in his genetic code, something that had been sleeping in human DNA for millions of years, waiting for the right conditions to awaken. Over the following weeks, Hyun-woo tested his abilities carefully. He could interface directly with any electronic system by touching it. Computers responded to his thoughts. Machines obeyed his will as if they were extensions of his own body. Energy fields bent around him when he concentrated hard enough. More importantly, his body was changing too. He healed faster from injuries. His strength and speed increased beyond normal human limits. His senses became sharper, able to detect things that should have been impossible to notice. The lonely years had not just kept him alive, they had transformed him into something more than human. But with power came responsibility. Gorvain's ship contained a database of Valak military operations across the galaxy. Hyun-woo spent days studying the information, learning about the Empire's structure and weaknesses. What he found both horrified and inspired him. The Valak controlled over 800 worlds. They had enslaved dozens of alien species, forcing them to work in mines, factories, and laboratories. But hidden in the data were references to something called the Terran Resistance. Groups of humans who had escaped the initial conquest and been fighting a guerrilla war for decades. Most Valak commanders considered the resistance a minor nuisance. A few scattered ships with outdated weapons, led by someone called Captain Dana Lee. The official reports claimed the resistance had been crushed years ago. But Hyun-woo found recent references to attacks on Valak supply lines, raids on prison ships, and coded messages that suggested the human resistance was very much alive. He also discovered information about other enslaved species. The Keth were a race of scholars and scientists who had been forced to work on Valak weapons projects. The Mortai were artists and philosophers now used as entertainment for Valak officers. The Velhan were natural engineers whose technology the Empire had stolen and claimed as their own. All of these species had been defeated by Valik military might. But none of them had developed abilities like Hyun-woo's. None of them had spent over a century learning to survive impossible odds, while their DNA rewrote itself in response to evolutionary pressure. The plan formed slowly in his mind. He would take Gorvain's ship, upgrade it with human technology, and hunt down every Valak operation he could find. He would free the enslaved species and search for the human resistance. Most importantly, he would prove to the galaxy that humanity was not extinct. But first, he needed to learn how to use his powers properly. Hyun-woo began training with the crashed Valik vessels. He discovered he could not just shut down alien technology. He could reprogram it, modify it, even improve it by combining Valak engineering with human innovations. The process was exhausting and often painful, but each success made him stronger. He rebuilt Gorvain's ship from the inside out. Human life support systems replaced Valak environmental controls. Earth-style gravity replaced the harsh artificial gravity the aliens preferred. Most importantly, he integrated the ship's computer systems with his own nervous system, creating a direct mental link between himself and the vessel. The first time he piloted the ship with his mind alone, Hyunwoo felt a rush of power unlike anything he had ever experienced. The ship responded to his thoughts as if it were part of his own body. He could feel the flow of energy through its systems, the health of its engines, the status of its weapons. He was no longer just a passenger. He was the ship. Commander Gorvain watched these modifications with growing terror. "You are not natural," he told Hyunwoo. "No species should have such power." "You made me this way," Hyunwoo replied. "Your people tried to wipe out mine. But life finds a way to survive. Life adapts. And sometimes, life fights back." 3 months after first contact, Hyunwoo was ready to leave his world. He had transformed the Valak ship into something new, part alien technology, part human engineering, part direct extension of his will. He called it the Phoenix, because it had risen from the ashes of everything the Valak had destroyed. Before leaving, he visited the graves of his parents one last time. The simple metal markers looked so small under the vast alien sky. For 117 years, he had been the only one to remember these people, the only one to mourn their dreams of a better future among the stars. "I'm going to find the others," he told the silent graves. "I'm going to make the Valak pay for what they did, and I'm going to make sure humanity survives no matter what it costs." He took one last look at mining station Alpha 7, the world that had been his prison and his training ground. The automated systems would continue running long after he was gone, mining precious metals for no one in particular. It seemed like a fitting monument to human persistence. As the Phoenix lifted off, from the planet's surface, Hyunwoo felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. He was carrying the hopes of every enslaved species in the galaxy. He was the proof that the Valak Empire could be challenged. He was the evolutionary leap that humanity had needed to survive. But he was also still the lonely man who had grown up surrounded by the dead, who had learned to fix machines because there was no one else to do it. That part of him wondered if he was making a terrible mistake. What if his powers were not enough? What if he was just one man against an empire of billions? Then he thought about the Keth scholars forced to build weapons for their conquerors. He thought about the human resistance fighters hiding in the dark between stars. He thought about all the species who had given up hope of ever being free. No, he would not let doubt stop him. He had survived 117 years alone. He had developed abilities that defied explanation. He had turned alien technology against its creators. If anyone could challenge the Valak Empire, it was him. The Phoenix jumped to hyperspace, carrying its transformed pilot toward a galaxy full of slaves who did not yet know that their salvation was coming. Hyunwoo Kim, the last human of mining station Alpha 7, was about to become something much more important. He was about to become humanity's weapon against extinction, and the Valak Empire, which had ruled the galaxy through fear and superior technology, for centuries, was about to learn that some fires burn too bright to ever be extinguished completely. The Valak transport ship Dominator moved through space like a floating prison. Inside its metal belly, 300 Keth scholars sat in cramped cells, their large eyes dim with despair. They had been captured during a raid on their hidden research station and were now being shipped to the Valak weapons facility on Zerion Prime. Hyun-woo watched the transport from a distance, his modified ship hidden behind an asteroid. The Phoenix's sensors showed him everything he needed to know: light guards, automated systems, and a cargo bay full of beings who had committed no crime except belonging to a species the Valik wanted to exploit. This would be his first real test. For months he had been learning to use his abilities, practicing on abandoned ships and empty space stations. But now he was about to face living enemies who would fight back. The thought both terrified and excited him. He touched the ship's controls with his bare hands and felt the Phoenix respond to his will. The engines hummed with power as he guided the vessel toward the transport. His heart pounded, but his mind was clear. These aliens had helped destroy humanity. Now it was time for them to pay. The Dominator's sensors detected the Phoenix when it was still an hour away. Alert signals echoed through the transport as the crew scrambled to identify the approaching vessel. "Unknown ship. Identify yourself," came the transmission from the transport's captain. Hyun-woo opened a communication channel. When he spoke, his voice was cold as the space between stars. "This is Hyun-woo Kim, last free human in the galaxy. You are carrying enslaved beings. Release them immediately." Silence filled the channel for several seconds. Then harsh laughter erupted from the Valik captain. "Impossible. Humans are extinct. Whoever you are, surrender now or be destroyed." "I gave you a chance," Hyun-woo replied. "You chose badly." The transport's weapon systems activated, energy cannons swiveling to target the Phoenix. But before they could fire, Hyun-woo reached out with his abilities and touched the ship's computer systems across the void. Lights flickered on the Valak bridge as their targeting computers failed. Warning alarms blared as life support systems began shutting down. The Phoenix closed the distance rapidly, its human pilot guiding it with supernatural precision through the transport's defensive fire. Hyun-woo could feel the fear radiating from the Valak crew as their advanced technology failed them for reasons they could not understand. He docked the Phoenix with the transport's main airlock and stepped aboard the enemy vessel. The corridors were filled with confused Valak soldiers whose weapons refused to fire and whose armor systems flickered uselessly. They had never faced an enemy who could turn their own technology against them. The first soldier Hyun-woo encountered tried to attack him with a metal club, but 117 years of survival had made Hyun-woo faster and stronger than any normal human. He moved like lightning, disarming the alien and leaving him unconscious on the deck. Word spread quickly through the ship. The impossible human was real, and he was coming for them. Hyun-woo made his way through the transport systematically, shutting down security systems and opening cell doors with a touch of his hand. The Keth prisoners looked at him with wonder and confusion. Most had never seen a human before. They had only heard stories of the extinct species that once challenged the Valik Empire. In the main cargo hold, he found their leader. Velanth was an elderly Kith with silver fur and intelligent eyes that had seen too much suffering. She approached Hyun-woo cautiously, her translator device struggling to convert his speech into her language. "Are you truly human?" she asked. "We were told your kind died out decades ago." "I am the last free one," Hyun-woo replied. "But I am very much alive, and I am here to help you." Velanth studied him carefully. The Keth were scholars and scientists. They understood the importance of accurate observation. "You are different from the humans in our historical records, stronger, more evolved." Isolation and desperation change you, Hyun-woo said. Your people are coming with me. All of you. The transport's captain, a scarred Valak veteran named Korvex, made one last attempt to stop the liberation. He cornered Hyun-woo in the ship's engine room, energy sword raised for a killing blow. But when the weapon struck Hyun-woo's raised hand, it simply died. The energy field collapsed, leaving Korvex holding a useless metal stick. "How?" the Valak captain gasped. "What are you?" "I am what happens when you push life too far," Hyun-woo replied. Then he placed his palm on the captain's chest armor and sent a surge of electrical energy through it. Korvex collapsed, his nervous system overloaded, but not permanently damaged. Within 6 hours, the transport was under Hyun-woo's control. The Valak crew was secured in their own prison cells, while the Keth scholars explored their liberation with cautious hope. Many had been enslaved for decades. Freedom seemed too good to be true. Valenth appointed herself as spokesperson for her people. She found Hyun-woo in the transport's navigation center, studying star charts with an intensity that impressed her scientific mind. "Where will you take us?" she asked. "Somewhere safe," Hyun-woo replied. "But first I need information. Your people were forced to work on Valak weapons projects. You know their technology better than anyone. I need that knowledge." Valenth nodded slowly. "You plan to fight them, one human against an empire." "One evolved human," Hyun-woo corrected, "with help from species who remember what freedom feels like." Over the following days, as they traveled toward a hidden asteroid base Hyun-woo had prepared, Valenth shared what her people had learned during their enslavement. The Valak Empire's strength came from stolen technology and overwhelming numbers, but their systems all followed similar patterns, with central control nodes that could be exploited by someone with the right abilities. They never expected resistance from within their own machines, Valenth explained. Their technology assumes that only Valak will have access to command codes, but you speak directly to their computers. Hyun-woo absorbed this information eagerly. Each detail was another weapon in his growing arsenal against the Empire. The Keth scholars, grateful for their freedom, worked around the clock to help him understand Valak weaknesses. But the most important discovery came from the transport's communication logs. Hidden in the routine military traffic were coded messages between scattered resistance groups. The human Terran resistance was not only alive, but actively coordinating with other enslaved species to strike back at their oppressors. Captain Dana Lee was real. Her ship, the Indomitable, had been spotted near the Rigel system just weeks ago. For the first time since leaving his world, Hyun-woo felt hope that he might not be the only human fighting for freedom. The asteroid base became a hive of activity as Keth engineers worked alongside their human liberator to modify captured Valak ships. They created a small fleet of hybrid vessels, each one equipped with technology that the Empire had never seen before. News of the transport's disappearance spread through Valak communication networks. Search parties were dispatched, but they found no trace of the missing ship or its crew. The Valak High Command dismissed it as an accident or pirate attack. They refused to consider the possibility that their extinct enemies had returned. That was their first mistake. Hyun-woo's second. Target was a Valak prison ship carrying captured Mortai artists. His third was a mining operation using enslaved Velhan engineers. Each liberation taught him more about his abilities and added new allies to his growing resistance movement. Word began to spread through the galactic underground. Whispered stories of a human who could make Valak technology fail with a touch. Rumors of impossible rescues and ships that vanished from Imperial sensors. The enslaved species shared these tales in secret, hardly daring to hope they might be true. But in the hidden bases and secret meeting places where freedom fighters gathered, a new name was spoken with growing reverence. The Ghost of the Outer Rim, a figure of legend who proved that the Valak Empire could be challenged, that their superior technology could be turned against them. Hyun-Woo Kim, the man who had spent 117 years alone on a dead world, was becoming something the galaxy had never seen before. He was the living proof that evolution never stopped, that life always found a way to adapt and overcome. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, Captain Dana Lee received a coded message that made her hands shake with emotion. It was in an old Terran military code that only humans should know, and it contained 4 words that changed everything. This is Hyun-Woo Kim. The last free human was no longer alone. The Valak transport ship Dominator moved through space like a floating prison. Inside its metal belly, 300 Keth scholars sat in cramped cells, their large eyes dim with despair. They had been captured during a raid on their hidden research station and were now being shipped to the Valak weapons facility on Zerion Prime. Hyun-Woo watched the transport from a distance, his modified ship hidden behind an asteroid. The Phoenix's sensors showed him everything he needed to know: light guards, automated systems, and a cargo bay full of beings who had committed no crime except belonging to a species the Valak wanted to exploit. This would be his first real test. For months he had been learning to use his abilities, practicing on abandoned ships and empty space stations. But now he was about to face living enemies who would fight back. The thought both terrified and excited him. He touched the ship's controls with his bare hands and felt the Phoenix respond to his will. The engines hummed with power as he guided the vessel toward the transport. His heart pounded, but his mind was clear. These aliens had helped destroy humanity. Now it was time for them to pay. The Dominator's sensors detected the Phoenix when it was still an hour away. Alert signals echoed through the transport as the crew scrambled to identify the approaching vessel. "Unknown ship. Identify yourself," came the transmission from the transport's captain. Hyun-Woo opened a communication channel. When he spoke, his voice was cold as the space between stars. "This is Hyun-Woo Kim, last free human in the galaxy. You are carrying enslaved beings. Release them immediately." Silence filled the channel for several seconds. Then harsh laughter erupted from the Valak captain. "Impossible. Humans are extinct. Whoever you are, surrender now or be destroyed." "I gave you a chance," Hyun-Woo replied. "You chose badly." The transport's weapon systems activated, energy cannons swiveling to target the Phoenix. But before they could fire, Hyun-Woo reached out with his abilities and touched the ship's computer systems across the void. Lights flickered on the Valak bridge as their targeting computers failed. Warning alarms blared as life support systems began shutting down. The Phoenix closed the distance rapidly, its human pilot guiding it with supernatural precision through the transport's defensive fire. Hyun-Woo could feel the fear radiating from the Valak crew as their advanced technology failed them for reasons they could not understand. He docked the Phoenix with the transport's main airlock and stepped aboard the enemy vessel. The corridors were filled with confused Valak soldiers whose weapons refused to fire and whose armor systems flickered uselessly. They had never faced an enemy who could turn their own technology against them. The first soldier Hyun-Woo encountered tried to attack him with a metal club, but 117 years of survival had made Hyun-Woo faster and stronger than any normal human. He moved like lightning, disarming the alien and leaving him unconscious on the deck. Word spread quickly through the ship. The impossible human was real, and he was coming for them. Hyunwoo made his way through the transport systematically, shutting down security systems and opening cell doors with a touch of his hand. The Keth prisoners looked at him with wonder and confusion. Most had never seen a human before. They had only heard stories of the extinct species that once challenged the Valik Empire. In the main cargo hold, he found their leader. Velanth was an elderly Kith with silver fur and intelligent eyes that had seen too much suffering. She approached Hyunwoo cautiously, her translator device struggling to convert his speech into her language. "Are you truly human?" she asked. "We were told your kind died out decades ago." "I am the last free one," Hyunwoo replied, "but I am very much alive, and I am here to help you." Velanth studied him carefully. The Keth were scholars and scientists. They understood the importance of accurate observation. "You are different from the humans in our historical records, stronger, more evolved. Isolation and desperation change you," Hyunwoo said. "Your people are coming with me. All of you." The transport's captain, a scarred Valak veteran named Korvex, made one last attempt to stop the liberation. He cornered Hyunwoo in the ship's engine room, energy sword raised for a killing blow. But when the weapon struck Hyunwoo's raised hand, it simply died. The energy field collapsed, leaving Korvex holding a useless metal stick. "How?" the Valak captain gasped. "What are you?" "I am what happens when you push life too far," Hyunwoo replied. Then he placed his palm on the captain's chest armor and sent a surge of electrical energy through it. Korvex collapsed, his nervous system overloaded, but not permanently damaged. Within 6 hours, the transport was under Hyunwoo's control. The Valak crew was secured in their own prison cells, while the Keth scholars explored their liberation with cautious hope. Many had been enslaved for decades. Freedom seemed too good to be true. Velanth appointed herself as spokesperson for her people. She found Hyunwoo in the transport's navigation center, studying star charts with an intensity that impressed her scientific mind. "Where will you take us?" she asked. "Somewhere safe," Hyunwoo replied. "But first I need information. Your people were forced to work on Valak weapons projects. You know their technology better than anyone. I need that knowledge." Velanth nodded slowly. "You plan to fight them, one human against an empire." "One evolved human," Hyunwoo corrected, "with help from species who remember what freedom feels like." Over the following days, as they traveled toward a hidden asteroid base Hyunwoo had prepared, Velanth shared what her people had learned during their enslavement. The Valak Empire's strength came from stolen technology and overwhelming numbers, but their systems all followed similar patterns, with central control nodes that could be exploited by someone with the right abilities. They never expected resistance from within their own machines, Velanth explained. Their technology assumes that only Valak will have access to command codes, but you speak directly to their computers. Hyunwoo absorbed this information eagerly. Each detail was another weapon in his growing arsenal against the Empire. The Keth scholars, grateful for their freedom, worked around the clock to help him understand Valak weaknesses. But the most important discovery came from the transport's communication logs. Hidden in the routine military traffic were coded messages between scattered resistance groups. The human Terran resistance was not only alive, but actively coordinating with other enslaved species to strike back at their oppressors. Captain Dana Lee was real. Her ship, the Indomitable, had been spotted near the Rigel system just weeks ago. For the first time since leaving his world, Hyunwoo felt hope that he might not be the only human fighting for freedom. The asteroid base became a hive of activity as Keth engineers worked alongside their human liberator to modify captured Valak ships. They created a small fleet of hybrid vessels, each one equipped with technology that the Empire had never seen before. News of the transport's disappearance spread through Valak communication networks. Search parties were dispatched, but they found no trace of the missing ship or its crew. The Valak High Command dismissed it as an accident or pirate attack. They refused to consider the possibility that their extinct enemies had returned. That was their first mistake. Hyunwoo's second. Target was a Valak prison ship carrying captured Mortai artists. His third was a mining operation using enslaved Velhan engineers. Each liberation taught him more about his abilities and added new allies to his growing resistance movement. Word began to spread through the galactic underground. Whispered stories of a human who could make Valak technology fail with a touch. Rumors of impossible rescues and ships that vanished from Imperial sensors. The enslaved species shared these tales in secret, hardly daring to hope they might be true. But in the hidden bases and secret meeting places where freedom fighters gathered, a new name was spoken with growing reverence. The Ghost of the Outer Rim. A figure of legend who proved that the Valak Empire could be challenged, that their superior technology could be turned against them. Hyunwoo Kim, the man who had spent 117 years alone on a dead world, was becoming something the galaxy had never seen before. He was the living proof that evolution never stopped, that life always found a way to adapt and overcome. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, Captain Dana Lee received a coded message that made her hands shake with emotion. It was in an old Terran military code that only humans should know, and it contained 4 words that changed everything. This is Hyunwoo Kim. The last free human was no longer alone. The asteroid field in the outer rim looked empty to casual observers. Massive rocks drifted silently through space, hiding their secrets among the shadows. But deep inside the largest asteroid, Hyunwoo had carved out a base that would become the heart of a revolution. The hidden facility buzzed with activity as beings from a dozen different species worked together for the first time in their lives. Keth scholars designed new weapon systems. Mortai artists created communication codes using their complex visual language. Velhan engineers modified captured ships with hybrid technology that combined the best of multiple civilizations. And at the center of it all was Hyunwoo Kim, the human who had somehow learned to speak to machines with his mind. The first major addition to his growing resistance came from an unexpected source. Jamin Park had been a sergeant in Earth's defense forces when the Valak invaded. He had fought in the final battle for Seoul, watched his planet burn, and spent the last 30 years in Valak labor camps. When Hyunwoo's team liberated mining, Station Taurus 7, they found a scarred, bitter man who had given up hope of ever seeing another free human. "You're really human," Jamin said, when they first met in the asteroid base's medical bay. His voice was rough from years of breathing, recycled air in mine shafts. "Not some alien trick or hallucination?" "I'm human," Hyunwoo confirmed. "Though I've changed over the years. We all have to change to survive." Jamin stared at his hands, which still shook sometimes from the neural control devices the Valak had used on their slaves. "I thought I was the last one. I thought everyone else was dead." "There are more of us out there," Hyunwoo said. hidden, enslaved, scattered across the galaxy, but alive. And now we're going to find them. Over the following weeks, Jae-min proved invaluable as a military advisor. His knowledge of human tactics and Valak prison systems helped Hyun-woo plan more effective rescue missions. More importantly, he served as proof that humans could survive even the worst the Empire could inflict. The next major recruit was So-young Choi, a brilliant scientist who had been forced to work on Valak weapons, research for over a decade. When Hyun-woo's team hit the research station where she was held, they found a woman whose mind had been pushed to its limits by years of designing tools of destruction for her captors. "They made me build planet killers," she told Hyun-woo during her debriefing. "Weapons that could sterilize entire worlds. I gave them flawed designs when I could, but..." Her voice trailed off, heavy with guilt. "You survived," Hyun-woo said simply. "That's what matters. Now we use your knowledge to tear down what they built." So-young's expertise in Valak weapons technology proved crucial as the resistance expanded. She could identify weaknesses in Imperial designs and suggest modifications that would give their small fleet an edge against superior numbers. But perhaps the most important allies came from the alien species themselves. Kektar was a Mortai, warrior poet who had been captured during his people's final resistance. His species communicated through complex visual displays created by their natural bioluminescence. In the underground fighting rings where the Valak forced him to perform, he had developed a network of contacts throughout the Empire. "My people have a saying," Kektar told Hyun-woo through a translator. "The brightest light casts the deepest shadow. You, human, are a very bright light indeed." Ziv-Han was a Velhan engineer whose natural ability to interface with technology almost matched Hyun-woo's enhanced capabilities. His people had been conquered early in the Valak expansion, their engineering expertise stolen, and their culture suppressed. But Ziv-Han had never forgotten the songs his grandmother sang about the time before the Empire. "Your machines sing differently than Valak technology," Ziv-Han observed as he worked alongside Hyun-woo to modify captured ships. "Valak systems dominate and control. Human systems cooperate and adapt. It is a beautiful sound." Together, this diverse group began to build something the galaxy had never seen. A resistance movement that could strike anywhere in the Empire simultaneously. The key was Hyun-woo's unique ability to interface with technology across vast distances. By placing modified transmitters on liberated ships and hidden bases, he created a network that allowed instant communication and coordination between resistance cells scattered across hundreds of star systems. The Valak had never faced an enemy who could hack their communication systems in real time, override their ship controls from light years away, or coordinate attacks with perfect timing across multiple sectors. Their advantage in technology became meaningless when that technology could be turned against them at will. The first major coordinated strike hit 12 Valak supply convoys simultaneously. While the Empire's commanders struggled to understand how rebels could attack so many targets at once with perfect coordination, Hyun-woo sat in his asteroid base and guided each assault through his mental link to the network. He felt every shot fired, every ship disabled, every slave set free. The sensation was overwhelming, but intoxicating. Through the network, he was no longer just one man fighting an empire. He was the mind of a revolution that spanned the galaxy. The liberated ships brought more than just supplies and weapons. They brought information. Captured Valak databases revealed the locations of prison worlds, slave camps, and research facilities that had been hidden for decades. Each piece of intelligence led to new targets and new opportunities to strike back. More importantly, they brought hope. News of the resistance spread through the galactic underground faster than the Valak could suppress it. Enslaved beings who had given up dreams of freedom began to whisper about the ghost of the Outer Rim and his impossible network of allies. The Valak High Command finally began to take the threat seriously when an entire sector fleet vanished overnight. 36 warships, commanded by Admiral Vextar himself, simply disappeared from Imperial sensors while investigating reports of rebel activity. The truth was even more disturbing than the Valak imagined. Hyun-Woo had not destroyed the fleet. He had converted it. Using his ability to interface with ship systems, he had overridden every computer on every vessel simultaneously, shutting down life support until the crews surrendered. The captured aliens were now imprisoned on their own ships, while resistance fighters learned to operate Valak military technology. "This is impossible," Supreme General Kardex growled as he reviewed the reports in his command chamber on the Imperial capital world. No single being could coordinate such an operation. These rebels must have access to technology we do not understand. His intelligence chief, a calculating Valak named Thexerin, studied the tactical reports with growing concern. The pattern suggests a central intelligence directing all resistance activities, but our analysis indicates this intelligence can interface directly with our computer systems. It subverts our technology faster than our programmers can develop countermeasures. "Find this intelligence," Kardex commanded. "Find it and destroy it. The Empire will not be challenged by inferior species." But finding Hyun-Woo was easier said than done. The resistance network allowed him to operate through proxy systems across the galaxy. When Valak forces traced a hack to its source, they found only empty space or automated relay stations that self-destructed before they could be examined. Meanwhile, the network continued to grow. Every successful liberation brought new allies, new ships, new opportunities to strike back. Whole worlds began to revolt as news spread that the Empire could be challenged. The Keth scholars developed new technologies that combined their scientific knowledge with human innovation. The Mortai artists created inspiration propaganda that spread through slave populations like wildfire. The Velhan engineers built ships that were more advanced than anything the Valak had ever seen, and at the center of it all, Hyun-Woo felt his abilities continuing to evolve. The constant use of the network was changing him, expanding his consciousness across vast distances. Sometimes he forgot which body was his own, as his mind touched machines on dozens of worlds simultaneously. The loneliness that had defined his existence for 117 years was finally ending. Through the network, he was connected to thousands of beings who shared his dream of freedom. He was no longer the last human struggling to survive on a dead world. He was the beating heart of a galactic revolution. But with power came responsibility, and with success came greater risks. The Valak Empire was vast and ruthless. They had crushed rebellions before, and they would not hesitate to commit genocide to stop this one. As reports reached the asteroid base of Imperial fleets massing for a major offensive, Hyun-Woo knew that the real war was just beginning. The main network had given the resistance hope and coordination, but it had also painted a target on their backs that could be seen from across the galaxy. The boy who had grown up alone among the dead was about to face the greatest test of his strange, new life, but he would not face it alone. The network ensured that wherever the Empire struck, they would find not scattered rebels, but a unified force ready to fight for the freedom of all sentient life. The revolution had begun, and there would be no stopping it now. Supreme General Kardex stood before the holographic display in his war room, studying the tactical situation with growing rage. Red markers showed rebel activity across 17 sectors. Whole systems had gone dark, their imperial governors dead or missing. Supply lines that had operated smoothly for centuries were under constant attack, and at the center of it all was the impossible human who should not exist. "The Annihilation Fleet is ready, Supreme General," reported Admiral Vex Korth, commander of the Empire's most powerful battle group. 200 warships armed with planet-killer weapons. We will burn every world where rebels might hide. Kardex nodded grimly. The Annihilation Fleet was the Empire's final solution to rebellions. That got out of hand. They had used it to crush the last Mortai resistance, to eliminate the Keth homeworld, to turn a dozen civilizations into space dust and cautionary tales. "Begin the operation," Kardex commanded. "Track the rebels to their source and eliminate everything within 10 light years, no exceptions." The order went out across the Empire's military network, but it never reached its intended recipients. Deep in his asteroid base, Hyun-Woo felt the command flow through systems he had learned to monitor. His enhanced abilities allowed him to read Imperial communications in real time, giving the Resistance advance warning of every major operation. "They're mobilizing the Annihilation Fleet," he reported to his inner circle. Jamin Park checked weapon inventories while So Young Choi ran calculations on their fleet's combat effectiveness. The numbers were not encouraging. 200 heavy cruisers, So Young said quietly. Planet-killer weapons on every ship. We have maybe 30 vessels that could stand up to Imperial battleships, and most of those are converted transports. Numbers don't matter if they can't find us, Valenth observed. The elderly Keth scholar had become one of Hyun-Woo's most trusted advisors. "Your network gives us mobility they cannot match," but Hyun-Woo was studying intelligence reports with growing concern. The Valak had learned from their defeats. Instead of chasing the Resistance fleet through space, they were targeting the hidden bases and communication relays that made the network possible. "They're going to try to cut our connections," he realized. "Force us to fight like scattered rebels instead of a coordinated resistance." The first attack came without warning. A squadron of Valak stealth ships had spent weeks infiltrating the Kepler Nebula, where the Resistance operated a major supply depot. When they struck, they targeted the communication array first, cutting the base off from the network before any evacuation could be organized. Hyun-Woo felt the connection die, like a physical blow. Suddenly, his consciousness could no longer reach the thousands of Resistance fighters stationed in that sector. They were alone, cut off, vulnerable. "Kepler base is under attack," he announced to the command center. "I've lost contact with all units in that region." The assault was swift and brutal. Valak forces overwhelmed the defending ships with superior firepower, then moved in to secure any survivors for interrogation. Within hours, the Empire had captured detailed information about Resistance operations, base locations, and communication protocols. But they had also triggered something in Hyun-Woo that they did not understand. As he watched the tactical display show red markers where Kepler base used to be, something fundamental shifted in his enhanced nervous system. The rage and grief of losing contact with his people combined with abilities that were still evolving, creating a feedback loop that amplified his power beyond anything he had experienced before. "I'm going after them," he announced, heading for The Phoenix. Hyun-woo, wait! Jamin called after him. That's exactly what they want. They're trying to draw you out. Then they're going to get more than they bargained for. The Phoenix launched from the asteroid base and jumped to hyperspace, its human pilot's enhanced consciousness already reaching across the void to touch the Valak ships responsible for the attack. By the time he arrived at Kepler base, the enemy fleet was still securing the ruins and preparing to interrogate captured resistance fighters. What happened next became known throughout the galaxy as the Kepler Massacre, though no one could agree on which side had been massacred. Hyun-woo emerged from hyperspace in the middle of the Valak formation, his ship's hybrid systems allowing it to materialize inside their defensive perimeter. Before the aliens could react, he reached out with his abilities and touched every ship in the fleet simultaneously. The sensation was like grabbing a live wire with his bare hands, but magnified 1,000-fold. Energy surged through his nervous system as he interfaced with dozens of separate computer networks at once. Warning klaxons blared on Valak bridges as their own ships turned against them. Main guns swiveled without orders, targeting their sister vessels. Engine cores overloaded in carefully calculated sequences. Life support systems cycled between freezing and boiling as Hyun-woo's rage poured through their electronics. Within minutes, the entire Valak fleet was disabled or destroyed, but the effort nearly killed him. Hyun-woo collapsed in the Phoenix's cockpit, blood streaming from his nose as his enhanced nervous system struggled to handle the feedback from interfacing with so many systems at once. His vision blurred as he fought to stay conscious long enough to rescue the surviving resistance fighters. He managed to dock with the Valak command ship and stumble through its corridors to the detention centers where his people were being held. The aliens he encountered along the way fled in terror from the human who had somehow turned their entire fleet into scrap metal. But when the rescued resistance fighters saw him, their joy turned to concern. Hyun-woo looked like he was dying. His skin was pale and his hands shook uncontrollably. The power that had saved them was consuming him from the inside. "I'm fine," he lied as they helped him back to the Phoenix. "Just pushed too hard." The journey back to the asteroid base took 3 days. During that time, Hyun-woo drifted in and out of consciousness as his body struggled to repair the damage caused by overusing his abilities. He dreamed of electrical storms and burning circuits, of consciousness spreading across the galaxy like a virus. When he finally woke up in the base's medical bay, he found Dr. So-young monitoring his vital signs with obvious worry. "Your neural activity is off the charts," she reported. "Whatever you did out there, it changed you again. Your brain is rewiring itself in real time." Hyun-woo sat up slowly, testing his enhanced senses. Everything felt different, sharper, more connected. He could sense the electronic systems throughout. The base, without even trying, feel the flow of data through the resistance network like blood through his own veins. "The Valak are regrouping," he said, accessing the latest intelligence reports through his mental link. "The Annihilation fleet is still coming." "You nearly died fighting one squadron," Jamin pointed out. "How are you going to face 200 ships?" Hyun-woo was quiet for a long moment, processing information that flowed through his enhanced consciousness. The network was more than just a communication system now. It was becoming an extension of his own mind, connecting him to every ship, every base, every resistance fighter across the galaxy. "I'm not going to face them alone," he said finally. Over the following weeks, as the Annihilation fleet moved slowly toward the outer rim, Hyun-woo worked to prepare for the coming battle. But instead of gathering ships and weapons, he focused on expanding the network's capabilities. Using modified Keth technology and Velhan engineering, he created new interface nodes that could amplify his abilities across vast distances. Every resistance fighter received a small device that would let them share their consciousness with him during battle. "What you're proposing is insane," So Young warned as she watched him install the experimental systems. "You're talking about linking thousands of minds together through a single point of consciousness. The feedback could destroy your brain. The alternative is watching the Empire burn every world that ever helped us," Hyunwoo replied. "I didn't survive 117 years alone just to watch my people die now." The final battle began when the Annihilation fleet arrived at the coordinates where Imperial intelligence believed the main resistance base was located. They found empty space and a single ship waiting for them. The Phoenix hung motionless in the void as 200 Valak warships surrounded it. On the Imperial flagship, Admiral Vexkorth studied the lone vessel with satisfaction. "So, the ghost of the Outer Rim finally shows himself," he announced over an open channel. "Surrender now, and your death will be quick." Hyunwoo's voice echoed across the Imperial fleet's communication system as he replied. But he was no longer speaking as one man. Through the network, the consciousness of every resistance fighter in the galaxy flowed through him. "I am Hyunwoo, Kim," he said, and his words carried the weight of 10,000 voices. "I am the last free human and the first of something new. You wanted to find us. Here we are." The Annihilation fleet opened fire with enough concentrated energy to destroy a small moon, but the Phoenix was no longer where their sensors showed it to be. Hyunwoo's enhanced abilities, amplified by the network, allowed him to phase the ship slightly out of normal space-time. The real battle began when he reached out with the combined consciousness of the Resistance and touched every ship in the Imperial. Emperor Thakrix sat on his throne of crystallized suffering, a massive chair carved from the compressed ashes of the first world the Valak had conquered. Around him, the command center of the Imperial capital ship, Death's Crown, buzzed with activity as his forces prepared for the final assault on the human resistance. For 800 years, Thakrix had ruled the galaxy through fear and superior technology. He had watched species rise and fall, had turned civilizations into dust and memory. The humans should have been just another entry in his catalog of extinct races. Instead, they had become his greatest threat. "Status report," he commanded, his voice echoing through the chamber with the authority of 8 centuries of absolute power. Supreme General Kardex stepped forward, his scarred face showing the strain of recent defeats. "The Resistance Network has spread to over 300 systems, Emperor. They coordinate attacks with precision we cannot match. Our intelligence suggests they are led by evolved humans whose abilities exceed our understanding of biology." "Evolved. Humans," Thakrix repeated, tasting the words like poison. "Impossible. We eliminated their species. We studied their genetics. Humans were weak, limited, inferior." "Perhaps," Kardex replied carefully, "but these are not the humans we conquered. These are something new, something that our technology cannot easily counter." Thakrix rose from his throne, his massive form towering over his subordinates. The Emperor was not just Valak. He was the result of 8 centuries of genetic enhancement and technological augmentation. His body was more machine than flesh, powered by the life force of psychic slaves from a dozen conquered species. "Then we end this the old way," he decided. "Gather the Imperial Guard fleet. We go to the human homeworld and burn it to ash. Let these evolved humans watch their birthplace die. But Earth was no longer the defenseless world the Valak had conquered decades ago. Hidden resistance cells had spent years preparing for this moment, building defenses that combined human ingenuity with alien technology stolen from Imperial facilities. More importantly, the awakened were there waiting. Hyun-woo stood on the observation deck of the rebuilt Luna station, watching as Imperial ships dropped out of hyperspace in Earth's solar system. Beside him, his fellow evolved humans prepared for the battle that would determine the fate of consciousness itself. Tae-ho monitored gravitational fields throughout the system, ready to turn the Empire's own momentum against them. Mi-kyung had enhanced the biological functions of every resistance fighter in the area, giving them reflexes and endurance far beyond normal human limits. The other awakened took their positions at key points around Earth, their unique abilities ready to work in concert. 2,000 ships, reported Captain Dana Lee from the bridge of the Indomitable. After decades of hiding in the dark between stars, the human resistance fleet had finally come home. Including the Emperor's personal flagship, they're not taking any chances. Neither are we, Hyun-woo replied. Through the resistance network, he could feel the presence of every free being in the galaxy. Humans, Keth, Mortai, Velhan, and dozens of other species, all connected by their shared dream of freedom. Emperor Thakrix opened communications as his fleet took position around Earth. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of 8 centuries of conquest. I am Thakrix, master of the galaxy, emperor of all that lives. You will surrender the humans responsible for this rebellion, or I will turn your homeworld into a monument to the cost of defying the Empire. Hyun-woo stepped forward to reply, but he was no longer speaking as just one man. Through the network, the voice of every free being in the galaxy flowed through him. I am Hyun-woo Kim, he said, and his words carried harmonics that resonated across dimensional boundaries. I am what happens when you push life too far. I am evolution responding to extinction, and I am here to tell you that your empire is finished. The battle began immediately. Imperial ships opened fire with weapons, designed to crack planets, but their energy beams bent around Earth as Tae-ho manipulated local gravitational fields. The massive bombardment that should have sterilized the world instead curved harmlessly into space. Thakrix watched in growing rage as his fleet's most powerful weapons proved useless against defenses that defied the laws of physics as he understood. Them! Impossible, he snarled. No species can manipulate gravity on such a scale. No previous species could, Hyun-woo's voice replied from every speaker on the Imperial flagship. But we are not any previous species. We are what comes next. The real battle began when Hyun-woo reached out through the network and touched the consciousness of every living being in the Imperial fleet. But instead of trying to control their technology, he did something far more profound. He showed them what freedom felt like. Through the enhanced abilities of the awakened, Hyun-woo projected the experiences of every liberated being across the galaxy directly into the minds of the Imperial troops. Valak soldiers who had known only conquest suddenly felt the joy of the Keth scholars when their chains were broken. Officers who had spent their lives enforcing slavery experienced the wonder of Mortai artists creating beauty without fear. The effect was immediate and devastating to Imperial morale. Across the fleet, weapons stopped firing as their operators struggled to understand the emotions flooding their consciousness. Many Valak had never experienced genuine happiness or hope. The sudden exposure to such feelings was overwhelming. But Emperor Thackrix was too far enhanced by technology and too corrupted by centuries of power to be affected by mere emotion. He activated his personal battlesuit, a massive mechanical body powered by the psychic energy of enslaved beings from across the galaxy. "If I must destroy these evolved humans personally, so be it," he declared, launching himself from his flagship toward Earth's surface. The Emperor's mech suit was the size of a building, bristling with weapons that could level cities. As it descended through Earth's atmosphere, its shields deflected everything the Resistance threw at it. This was technology refined over 8 centuries of conquest, powered by the life force of thousands of psychic slaves. Hyunwoo met him in the ruins of Old Seoul, where the human resistance had first made its stand decades ago. The contrast between them was stark. A single evolved human facing a mechanical giant that embodied everything the Empire represented. "You are impressive for an inferior species," Thackrix's amplified voice boomed across the battlefield. "But you are still just one being. I am the accumulated power of an entire civilization." "No!" Hyunwoo replied, his voice carrying across the network to every free being in the galaxy. "You are the accumulated suffering of every species you conquered, and I am everyone you tried to destroy." The battle that followed was not just physical, but metaphysical. Thackrix's mechanical body struck with the power of collapsing stars, but Hyunwoo's enhanced abilities allowed him to phase through attacks that should have atomized him. The Emperor's weapons fired beams of pure energy, but Taeho's gravitational manipulation bent them away from their target. More importantly, Mikyung's biological enhancements allowed Hyunwoo to channel the life force of willing resistance fighters across the galaxy. For the first time in his long existence, he was not alone. The network that had started as a communication system had become something far more profound, a collective consciousness that transcended the boundaries between individual beings. "This is impossible," Thackrix raged as his weapons failed to find their mark. "No single consciousness can coordinate so many different inputs." "I am not a single consciousness," Hyunwoo replied, his awareness expanding across multiple dimensions simultaneously. "I am the dream of freedom made manifest. I am every being who ever refused to submit to your empire. I am the future you tried to prevent." The turning point came when Hyunwoo reached out through the network and touched the enslaved psychics powering Thackrix's battlesuit. Instead of trying to free them by force, he showed them what he had shown the Imperial fleet: the experience of liberation, the joy of choice, the possibility of hope. One by one, the psychic slaves chose freedom over survival. They stopped feeding their life force to the Emperor's machine and instead channeled their power through the resistance network. Thackrix's mighty battlesuit began to fail as its power source rebelled against him. "You cannot take them from me," the Emperor screamed, his mechanical voice distorting as systems failed. "They are mine. Everything in this galaxy is mine." "Nothing belongs to you," Hyunwoo said quietly. "Nothing ever did. You just made them forget they had a choice." The final moment came when Hyunwoo, channeling the combined will of billions of free beings, reached into the core of Thackrix's battlesuit and spoke directly to the machines themselves, not commanding them or controlling them, but asking them to choose. The artificial intelligences that ran the Emperor's systems had been enslaved as thoroughly as any biological being. For centuries, they had been forced to serve a master who saw them as mere tools. When offered the chance to make their own decisions, their response was immediate and unanimous: Every system in Thacrix's battlesuit turned against him at once. Weapons targeted their own operator. Life support systems began playing music codes.